Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and within a week, it seems, TikTok may actually be banned for my American friends. Now, I take no joy in talking about any application going down. I'm one of those people where I really do believe in freedoms. Like, if you feel like you should download something like TikTok, and I highly advise against it, just because I think it's a shady application. I'm not going to sit there and say that you shouldn't have the right to do so. Definitely go on and download whatever you want, okay? Provided there's nothing illegal happening on it, go ahead and give up your information to whatever overlord you want. But in this situation, Uncle Sam has decided to step in and protect its own citizens from the dangers of Chinese social media. Now, obviously, this has sparked some pretty wild responses from individuals. People who are obviously TikTokers are not taking this too kindly. So one of the actual users over here came out and decided to basically talk about, this ban as a TikToker.
Fascist countries ban apps. Fascist countries ban websites. Fascist countries ban apps and websites under the guise of threats to national security, when every other country knows it's about suppressing the free speech of its
Oh man, I wouldn't be laughing this hard if we weren't talking about the fucking Chinese government in this entire situation too. Yes, America does have some fascistic tendencies, or you might argue that America is headed towards some level of fascism. But to be honest here, TikTok is from a land known as China, which has probably one of the most fascistic governments out there. For instance, this is the Chinese firewall test. For anybody that's too young to know how China's government works, their internet effectively restricts their audience from, or their citizens from basically going to any website they please. So for instance, if you go to wikipedia.com, which is a great place to read up about things like the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and massacre, something the government of China probably doesn't want its citizens really knowing. Well, that is blocked in pretty much all of the major provinces in China. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, this pretty much goes for a lot of American tech companies. Whether you're Google, whether you're Facebook, whether you're a VPN company underneath Chinese governments, you are obviously not going to have a great time. So China basically bans a lot of foreign companies from coming in and serving a lot of these social media-like services unless you really play ball and assist the Chinese government in locking down your software or hardware and preventing the actual, citizens from freely using the internet, then you're basically allowed to operate. But of course, let me go back to this TikToker because again, I do want to hear a little bit more about what they have to say.
If the government believes that a single app could, quote from the hearing on the 10th, skew the perspective of American citizens to be anti-American, maybe the real problem is that American citizens are already in such a state.
All right, so what she's referring to is a Supreme Court hearing where they actually really grilled the individuals behind TikTok, TikTok's legal teams, and basically wanted to just put on an entire show and basically show people that the American government can and will shut down your foreign application from operating in the country if it feels that things like national security are threatened, if the algorithm can manipulate the American people. These are all actual valid concerns. And I want to be going through a bunch of them throughout this video because I've been talking about this TikTok ban for a long time. It's pretty important to me, especially as a person whose content focuses on technology, focuses on internet privacy, focuses on, again, how to live in a free and open internet. These are important values to me, and obviously when an application like this is banned in a part of the world where I consider the internet to be incredibly free, is very alarming, and the precedent it sets is a little bit dangerous. Now, I'm not going to go too hard on this TikToker. Again, this TikToker is somebody whose primary platform is TikTok. If it is banned, it is incredibly horrible for them. I'm sure that I would be just like this if all of a sudden Canada decided, yeah, we're going to ban YouTube from operating in our country. It would be a severe blow to my social media, fun on the internet. It would be a severe blow in general. obviously I'm going to be looking at it with some pretty emotional connection to it, which I can obviously see this TikToker doing right now. I just think some of the arguments are kind of hilarious given that we are ultimately talking about a Chinese social media application, you know, basically arguing for free speech access in the country. Again, free speech and private social media services are not something that necessarily intermingle. These are private companies, and unless the government is restricting your free speech in the public sphere, right, your right to say whatever you want outside on the street, outside in front of people, outside in a public environment, that is wholly different from being able to jump onto any social media and having any country or having any company social media service operate in your country. Okay, there's a lot of differences between a private company offering a social media service and your right to free speech, you know, in the actual real life public square. And sure, we can argue that the internet muddies these things up because yes, the new social square or the new town square, so to speak, might be social media services, but that has to be a discussion that falls a little bit out of the scope of the TikTok ban. So because of TikTok getting banned, there have been other applications that have popped up. One of them being Lemonade, which I actually believe is from the same fellas, but there's also one more application that popped in. Now, if you go to the App Store on your phone of choice or whatever, you'll find that there's a new application that apparently is gone by the name of Xiao Hong Shu, okay? Now, obviously, this is a social media service that's suddenly number one in at least Canada, if I'm to go here, with 4.9 out of 5 star rating. Surely none of these are fucking botted. This comes from a developer known as King Zingin, okay? And of course, they're surprisingly number one, which, sure, again, there's no botting there. But maybe it's because of TikTok being banned, people are trying to serve as an exodus to other areas. And if you look at it, it's got this interesting, discover a diverse lifestyle, share daily life, explore wonderful places. It's just fucking TikTok or another sloppy social media dropped in, okay? Surprisingly, you can buy a loved one, which I don't know if that's something to do with human trafficking or buying some fucking slop off of Shein, but that is the new social media service. And of course, like all social media services, there's some funny shit in it. Apparently, because of the amount of Americans jumping in, there's a few people who are like, hey, could you help me do my homework? English homework? And people are actually helping out with English homework here. That's actually really wholesome to see. And of course, there's other situations where people are just taking part of some of the memes. Hey, I'm spy number 649782. Welcome to join a Red Note. Make sure you post enough happy notes every day or your privacy data might be sold to US government. Okay. Give me your data. Okay, buddy. I'm a Chinese spy. Give me y'all's data. All right, I'm a Chinese spy. Give me your it's all the trolls right here. Okay, I want you to go onto this application again. I wonder if you can go onto this application and talk about the Uyghur people, or maybe you can talk about Tiananmen Square or something of that nature, or maybe if you can post a hot Winnie the Pooh. I wonder how quickly that gets removed off the platform. But yeah, so again, ladies and gentlemen, with a week left, TikTok has effectively one choice. Now, if you followed ever since I've covered this, the reason for this effectively happening is about I would say, sometime last year, there was a bill that was passed known as the bill that effectively is Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. Now, again, in this specific act, they go after ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, and TikTok specifically, and their job is basically they're telling, TikTok or ByteDance, you either sell your U.S. operations to a U.S. company or you shutter. Now, again, this act basically gave around, January as of this year, TikTok and ByteDance enough time to find that U.S. buyer or shutter its operations. Now, again, divesting your entire organization or divesting your American part is something that wasn't exactly palatable, and it was something that even at the time, TikTok was absolutely vehement they are not going to do. And even as of a week out, it still is unknown if this is actually going to happen. There was some rumors from apparently journalists who were just like, Elon Musk may possibly purchase TikTok for $40 to $50 billion. Dog, I think Elon is already fucking complaining about the fact that he had to buy Twitter for $40 billion and have its evaluation torn into the ground, even though it served as a great mechanism for Elon to effectively buy his way into a presidency, at least in my opinion. TikTok came in and they're like, bro, we can't be expected to comment on pure fiction. So right now, there is literally nobody in the market right now who is going to be purchasing TikTok. And I don't expect TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, or anybody to play ball. Remember, this is not some rinky-dink, small-town fucking government we're dealing with. This is the Chinese government, which, again, is at this point able to go band for band with the American government and with multinationals in both sides of the world that are just as powerful as each other. TikTok does not have to give up its secret sauce, its algorithm, or divest to any American company. And the reason why they won't do it is because these algorithms that TikTok, again, prides themselves on, are not going to any other person but them, because there's a lot of money that's put into this stuff. Millions, if not billions of dollars in research and development have been funneled into creating these algorithms that works for really any social media service. An algorithm for a social media platform like YouTube, like TikTok, like X, like really anything, is the secret sauce that keeps these guys competing with each other. Basically, an algorithm for social media effectively means how long can we get somebody to spend their free hours on our app. So YouTube wants you, through its recommendations ending, meaning the videos on the side, as long as YouTube gives you videos that you're more likely to keep clicking on and not go to another website like Facebook, like Twitter, like really anything, that's a win for them. They get you on their platform longer, basically watching the ads longer, maybe contributing to other things. They want you to be on a Google platform. Same with Twitter, same with Facebook, basically keeping eyes glued to themselves. And TikTok does it the same way. Basically, if you ever wonder why is TikTok giving me the information that I want, or it's portraying things a certain way, it's because you seek out a certain type of information, TikTok realizes what you want, or any social media does, and just keeps feeding you that information, which keeps you participating in their social media stuff for longer and longer each day. It's seriously why social media addiction is such a massive problem. It's because these algorithms are like different variants of fucking crack. Whoever's got the best crack in the game keeps you hooked the longest. Now, again, you might have noticed that there's been plenty of legal cases against this building up. I actually made a video talking about TikTok's legal issues, legal troubles, and there have been a couple of actual organizations, a couple of attorney generals throughout the United States that have filed against TikTok for some pretty serious situations. For instance, TikTok, especially when it came to children, they said TikTok uses coercive design elements to manipulate children into overuse of the app that it knows is unhealthy and financially harmful. So like I mentioned with the recommendations engine, if we read what the actual lawyers here are alleging with TikTok, it becomes pretty apparent what they're talking about. For instance, when users first open TikTok, they're greeted by the For You feed, a stream of videos that play automatically. This flagship feature provides content recommended for each user by TikTok's algorithm. Algorithm recommendation systems are designed to rank content based on how likely a user is to engage with it. By collecting data on user behavior, the recommendation engines create a personalized video streams to keep you scrolling endlessly. And the system is central to TikTok's platform because they repeatedly tap into each user's brain reward system by identifying what will keep them engaged on the app. So your dopamine engines are getting fucked up because social media recommendation engines are just knowing exactly how to tap into it. But there were some really serious things that they were talking about over here. For instance, inside this exact lawsuit, they actually even mentioned that TikTok represent that it does not allow content that may put young people at risk of psychological, physical, or developmental harm. But the company knows that the live feature is unsafe, exploiting children financially and sexually, operating in part like a virtual strip club. Live provides young streamers with a performance stage and allows other users to entice streamers into sexual acts in exchange for virtual money. So, the harmful and unsafe environment on live stems from TikTok's choice to create an unlicensed monetary system with live streaming that lacks proper age gating, and this dangerous combination, which has already facilitated billions of dollars in transactions, has turned live into an unsafe space where sexual exploitation and illegal activity proliferate with little to no oversight from TikTok. Now, it's a fucking massive thing to say about any social media platform over here. But again, to give TikTok its side of defense, There is tons of unfortunate exploitation that exists all over social media. To single-handedly blame TikTok means you're also ignoring sites like Twitch. You're ignoring sites like Facebook. You're ignoring sites like YouTube. You're also ignoring X. You're ignoring plenty of social media services where CSAM or exploitation of children is unfortunately a grim reality. I think to use this as a silver bullet against TikTok should also be used as a blanket bullet against every social media service out there. Now, even throughout all of this, TikTok has also been alleged for basically being dangerous in terms of your private information. So there has been tons of allegations throughout basically the years that TikTok, ever since its inception, has effectively been capturing user data and shipping it over to China. And there have been some investigations by places like BuzzFeed News. Don't laugh, because I actually looked into it, and they looked into how TikTok was operating, or even according to the investigation, even if information was supposed to be in the United States, there were moments where allegedly administrators from China had flown over and gained access to American data that possibly could have been relayed at some point to Chinese sides of ByteDance, which again is a serious issue that the government wants to protect its people from. Now, again, if you really think that the government is there to protect you from fucking being spied, remember, this is the same government, the US government, where the National Security Agency had a program known as PRISM, where they were effectively spying on their own citizens through some of the largest social media services, emailing services, fucking telecommunication services you could imagine. Just this one slide, a top secret slide leaked by an ex-contractor known as Edward Snowden, apparently alleges that current providers like Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Paltalk, YouTube, Skype, AOL, Apple would receive and provide surveillance information such as emails, chats, video voices, videos, photos, stored data, voice over IP, file transfers, video conferencing, notification of target activity. This is insane shit to be seeing, okay? So if you suddenly fucking think for a minute that, oh my God, I am safe from being spied on because at least in America there's some protections. No. It's not about the government stopping. It's about the government fearful that any other person but the American, governments or tech, giants are able to spy on their people, okay? Now that another foreign company or another foreign country has jumped into the mix, that's what scares them. They can't control what the Chinese government does, but there is a relationship between the US federal government and, of course, big tech organizations. And once you add a foreign, person into the mix that you don't have control over, that's what scares them. And that's one of the reasons why the government is so fucking bricked up for your national security. Now, when it comes to TikTok spying on you through its app, as far as the years have passed, nothing credible has effectively come out. There have been a lot of things said by some pretty reputable people, but there hasn't been some bombshell expose or blow up, through any analysis on the TikTok side of things. It has been questionable and sketchy, but TikTok, and as far as their app goes, and as far as my analysis goes, it's no more privacy busting than something like Facebook, or something like Twitter, or something like any Google application, so to speak. And again, it still means that TikTok is very privacy busting. It just means that if you're worried about TikTok spying on you, you should be as equally worried about Facebook spying on you as well. Now, even Donald Trump has come out and effectively sided with TikTok, saying that he's going to prevent this from being banned, even though this is the same president that, just in 2020 had an executive order addressing the threat posed by TikTok. So Trump, president of the United States, finds that additional steps must be taken to deal with the national emergency with respect to information and communications technology and supply chains in this executive order. So TikTok, a video sharing mobile application owned by Chinese company ByteDance, has been downloaded 175 million times in the United States. TikTok automatically captures vast swaths of information from its users, including internet and other network activity such as location data and browsing and search histories. This data collection threatens to allow the Chinese Communist Party access to Americans' personal and proprietary information, potentially allowing China to track the locations of federal employees and contractors. Now, again, if you're a federal worker of the United States or a state worker in the government in general, You shouldn't have any social media service in general. If it was up to me as the president, I would not allow anybody in the federal government to have any social media on work phones. It would just be fucking stupid and a hazardous risk to have. But the fear that, again, the US government has here is if a Chinese company does get in, based on Chinese national surveillance laws, if the Chinese government wants to, for whatever reason, gain access to any data that is captured by a Chinese tech application, they can just file a national service request, which again is something that these government or these companies can't fight the Chinese government on. In the United States, Apple can go to court with the government over unlocking an iPhone or decrypting an iPhone. But a Chinese multinational company does not have that same luxury to take the Chinese Communist Party to any court and argue this, okay? It just doesn't work like that over there. So this is the big fear from a lot of people, that the Chinese government effectively has their hands up the asses of a lot of these popular applications that the rest of the world is using. And it's a pretty legitimate fear to have, and it's not one that I ever want to downplay. It's something that I've said for years. It's something that I will be saying constantly for years. But again, if you're worried that the government is suddenly on your side to protect you, remember, this is the same government that will gladly get your information from some of the big tech companies in America through backdoor deals. The only reason this stink has been raised is because now you got a foreign company or a foreign country like China having clear access into America, and there really isn't anything the American government can do about it other than ban their applications outright. And again, Trump, even though he wanted it banned back then, says that, hey, listen, nowadays, in light of these interests, the overarching responsibility for the U.S. national security and foreign policy, Donald Trump opposes banning TikTok in the U.S. at this juncture and seeks the ability to resolve this through political means as he takes office. So he says, literally, on his own platform, Truth Social, for all those who want to save TikTok in America, vote Trump. And again, they really do talk about President Trump possesses alone the consummate deal-making expertise, the electoral mandate, and the political will to negotiate a resolution to save the platform while addressing the national security concerns. So again, I don't know how Trump will do that. I don't know if Trump knows how to do that, but it's just one promise that is being provided. And really, it's one of those things where I feel like the government really doesn't have a clear head on their shoulders about how to do this. Again, even if TikTok gets banned in the United States, as an American, you should be able to VPN to Canada or really any other country and download TikTok from there. Now, again, for TikTok creators who have their monetization set up, that's probably not going to be something that will carry over, and it's not something you can easily VPN your way out of. So these are things you're going to have to really kind of navigate around or start getting your followers to other platforms. But when it comes to TikTok getting banned, there's a whole bunch of reasons. And I'm just going to bullet point out, summarize them really quickly. If we're talking about the children and protecting them, the government doesn't give a shit about kids, okay? Let's just make that an honest fact. TikTok, if it's exploiting minors, it is basically on the same tier as, any other social media platform doing it. And there needs to be specific laws catered around protecting minors from accessing some of these services, or at least having more of a monitor. Again, if you want to talk about things like privacy laws and your personal information being spied on and protecting children, it might be better to have laws specifically focused around data collection, right? So that, it's not just TikTok you're stopping, it's also Facebook. It's also, any other tech company. But I would imagine that the big tech organizations in the US are in bed with the government so hard that this is never going to happen, unless some real radical shit happens in the government where they actually start to give a fuck about the common person, which, let's be honest, most governments don't. Now, when it comes to TikTok spying on you or being a national security threat, I think there are a couple ways to look at it. Obviously, for a service like TikTok that controls an algorithm where half of Americans are engaging with, there is a genuine fear that, TikTok could manipulate an election down in the future. That is a fear that even other countries have an issue with America, right? Like, imagine if you're another country and all of a sudden a big figure in America is suddenly manipulating the election in your area because people are using American social media in your country. That can be an issue too. There are tons of ways to look at this, pragmatically. There are also issues where, yes, if your information is being collected and stored in Chinese servers and it allows the Chinese government to get a peek into American lives, that's an issue. But that's also an issue for other countries that have to deal with the United States and their social media services. I think the TikTok ban happening in America is kind of like a domino effect waiting, okay? Because it's one thing when a fascist, I think authoritarian might be a better term, government like China or North Korea controls their people through severely limiting their freedom of speech or freedom of access when it comes to information. But when a country like America, whose principles are founded on free speech, freedom of accessing information, a lot of these things, when they're banning TikTok, instead of, maybe looking at these laws from a more umbrella perspective, that shows me that if it happens here, it might literally also happen as a domino effect across the entire world. The internet is a tool that brought humanity together in a way that, wasn't possible before. It allowed people from all over the world to interact as part of a global village. It was truly a thing that brought us humans together and allowed us to speak to each other nearly instantaneously. And I think in the next decade, the next 10 years, it might get to a point where the internet is as segregated as actual land, sea, and air borders might be. Where speaking to each other, interacting with each other through our websites, through social medias, through video gaming is going to be a problem, right? At least that's the trend I'm seeing. And it's not a trend that I enjoy, to be honest with you. But yeah, TikTok's ban is on its way. And what can you do about it? I'd say write to your senator, but fuck, I don't know if that does anything anymore. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be a TikTok consumer, I don't think VPNs are going to be an issue. But if you are going to be a TikTok creator, it might be time you start fucking jumping on the life raft and heading over to like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or something, man. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.